Love Finance is the other F word and want to support the show? Become a patron by going to patreon.com/FTOFW. You'll get special features, a shout out on the air, and early releases. Or if you prefer, pick up some merchandise at financeistheotherfword.com.
As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, as wonderful an attorney as I am, and as good as Stormy is at whatever it is he does, please do note that anything said in our podcasts are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, Stormy Andrews, founder of Yokel Local Marketing, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Finance is the Other F Word. I am super excited about this podcast today because I have to tell you, we have a very accomplished, very attractive man, John Lewis, on the podcast with us today, and Stormy is going to introduce him in a minute. But before we get started, Zoe has to welcome a new country to the Finance is the Other F Word family.
Yes, I do. I'm here to say welcome to Argentina.
Argentina.
Yes, welcome to our ever-growing family.
I've been waiting for Argentina to get here. Yeah. Those are my fans. Those are my peeps in Argentina.
Yeah.
Argentina rocks.
Yes, we know. Yes, we know.
Say that
everybody. Yes, every countries even he can't pronounce or spell. That's where the Stormats reside. We know. We get it.
Absolutely. Hey,
okay,
but
Stormy, so
we're super excited. So we've got John Lewis here. And for those of you that know John Lewis, I know you're blown away. But for those of you that aren't familiar with John Lewis, let me give you a little bit of a background, because he is actually one of the, he is just a legend in the world of mixed martial arts. And I'm going to ask John, and, you know, sometimes it's really difficult to talk about yourselves, but John's received some accolades in the world of mixed martial arts, which are really unparalleled. Many of the big name stars that you know of today have been trained by John. So John, can you kind of go back and tell me your, from the days of in Hawaii as a dancer, right? Then got into the world of MMA, how in the world. Well, you know what? Let's forget how you got into MMA. Let's get a little bit of your credentials. Why do so many people out there, the mixed martial arts magazines, Kung Fu magazine, karate magazines, when they write about you, they write as you as one of the legends. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of a background of some of the black belts you hold and some of the mixed martial arts techniques that you're known for? Can you just give us a little bit of a background there?
Sure. Well, thanks for that. That is nice. Yeah, you know, first of all, just as far as the belts that I hold, I'm a 6th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's significant because I'm the 4th American to get a black belt in the world. So that's takes me way back, for a long time there. Black belt in Judo under Gene LaBelle, who is a legendary American grappler, and everybody knows Gene LaBelle. So I'm a black belt in Judo under him and also his grappling system. I'm a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is more like the self-defense style of Jiu-Jitsu, which is the throws and wrist locks from standing. And probably something else. I don't know, a couple other things as well. But yeah, I've studied a lot of different arts and for, reasons we'll get into.
And I think, what's your connection to Bruce Lee? Because one of these black belts you've gotten is from someone that also trained Bruce Lee. Is that correct?
That would
What's
be
that
Gene,
story?
yeah, that would be Gene LaBelle. And Gene LaBelle, because Bruce Lee was back in the day, he was one of the guys that were first understanding the concept of what I'd say mixed martial arts. He might have been the first mixed martial artist, in my opinion, because he was one of the first guys to realize that you can take a little bit from each art, and no one art is perfect, but the combination is what it is. So he was back then reaching out to the best of the best and trying to get his art, which is Jeet Kune Do today. And Gene LaBelle was his grappling instructor, I'm a black belt from Gene. I'm also Gene's first black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In Judo, from white to black. So that's another one of my credits, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Gene trained Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. Everybody major in the game of martial arts, from famous to non-famous, Gene LaBelle was their coach in America, and I was lucky enough to be one of his students.
And his first black belt student.
His first black belt, yeah.
That's
When I say that, I mean from white belt to black belt. Like those guys that
okay.
came and studied with him that maybe came in at a higher belt, and then he gave him a black belt. But I was his first, like from the beginning to the end. Me and a gentleman named John Fertitta, who's another very, very known, important person in the mixed martial art world.
Wow, that's pretty solid. And I know you've taken that and you formed your own style of mixed martial arts. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, almost in the same way that Bruce did. I basically studied, well, when I first started fighting in mixed martial arts, it wasn't called mixed martial arts. It was no holds barred. And it was a time when there really was style against style. So you'd see a karate guy fight a judo guy, or a jiu-jitsu guy fight a wrestler, you know, whatever. So at that time, I was really trying to hone in on my own version of what the best well-rounded style could be. After Bruce, of course, but I had more things to choose from in our current times than he had back when he was starting, including jiu-jitsu for one, you know, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Excuse me. So what I did is I tried to dabble in a lot of different arts. Besides the ones that I stuck with and got through from white to black belt, I made sure that I studied a little bit of everything, because there's going to be a time when I'm going to meet a jiu-jitsu guy in the corner, or a boxer in the corner, or a judo guy. And I wanted to understand what their concept was. So I studied a lot. And in doing so, I was starting to find things that I really liked. And I started putting together my art, which is what, you know, is JSECT, which now, has been all over the world for quite a long time now.
And in regards to JSECT, can you share who are some of the names of people that we may know that have come through JSECT Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh gosh, I mean, everybody has that matters today, but the names from the legendary names that you would know would be Chuck Liddell, Gene LaBelle. Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture, BJ Penn, Frank Trigg, Rico Rodriguez, Ensign Inouye, the Inouye brothers. I mean, pretty much everybody's come through our school. In the days that you were training with me back in the day, you'd see them all there on a regular basis. Quentin Jackson. All of them, all of those legends from the old days have came through the school, and many of them I trained for a very, very long time. Chuck for 12 years, cornered him from beginning, you know, from his second fight on till almost the end of his career. You know, in every fight you see me in the corner there doing my thing. So I've been with those guys for a long time and helped develop them. And I was fighting all along the time at the same time.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible, because back in the day when we were training in your gym, these guys were there every day, but it was before they were the big names that they, you know, that they became today. They were just some dude that you're grappling with. So, you know, I don't like to brag on how many people I choked out and taken out. I'm just going to leave that, you know, I won't mention how many champions I've taken out. I'm going to leave that. Yeah, we'll keep that quiet, right? We'll keep that quiet.
Yeah, you don't want to brag. You don't want to brag, Stormy.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to brag. I'll keep that quiet. But
he was serious. Stormy was serious though. He was in there all the time doing his thing. He was serious.
you know, because you know this podcast is finances, the other F word. So, you know, you're one of the legends, and I want to bring up, because I don't believe that the UFC would be the UFC today without you, because you are extremely instrumental in the UFC. And this is something that I don't know everyone knows of how instrumental you are or were in the UFC. But before we get to that, because I think that's so important, the way that you were just instrumental in what we know in the world of MMA. But before that, I remember you had this wild idea of, like, you know what, something that'd be kind of crazy. What if we took what if we get some of these great fighters, we get together at the Hard Rock? That was at the Hard Rock, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. The first fight, show, WFA.
Yeah, the WFA. The WFA. Can you tell us about the WFA? Because that was a revolutionary concept, which was just incredible when I went to my first WFA fight, and it was something that it seems like the UFC even follows a little bit of that model today. Can you talk to us about the WFA?
It's funny you say that. Well, you'll see why in a second. But the WFA is the World Fighting Alliance, and the slogan was "Where the Fight Club meets the nightclub." And at the time, this is pre-Zuffa, pre the Fertittas, pre-Dana White. The UFC had come to kind of like a halt for a while, because all the states were banning it, and that whole struggle was going on. And the UFC was on its last leg, like I say, pre the Fertittas. I realized at that time that the shows that were happening, even those shows at the end, were really, I mean, the reality of the fighting was there, the true fighting was there, but it didn't have any kind of pizzazz or any kind of entertainment value, I would say. So what I did is I thought about things like the WWE and things like that, and I said, man, how can we like encompass both of those things? And I don't mean from the big interviews and all that kind of stuff, crazy stuff, but I mean from the entertainment value. So what we did is I thought if I can try to find a way to incorporate a nightclub vibe, energy with real legitimate fights and give it a cool aura, it would be awesome, So what I did is I reached out to a gentleman named John Huntington, who was the biggest club promoter at the time. I mean, 10,000 people arenas at the Mandalay Bay, and he had a big events called Pimp and Ho and Summer of Love and all these big shows, him and Damian Sanders. And I said, listen, I want to do this thing. You can handle all the nightclub kind of feel of it, and I'll handle the fights, coordinating. I'm the president of the company, blah, blah, blah. So what we did is we ended up bringing in host the whole show, like Ice-T would be the master of ceremonies. We'd have DJs presiding over the cage, and between the rounds, he'd be spinning cool songs and go-go dancers between, and lasers and big screens with cool projections on it. And we made the vibe so cool. It was actually also, which is very unique at the time and risky for a new business, was 18 and older, which you kind of want as many people as you can, but I wanted to be that vibe. So what we did is we ended up combining the two things, the nightclub and the fight club, and we had an incredible turnout. I mean, we had good-looking people, women, men, all dressed up really nice. It was 18 and older, and it would just become a place that people would want to come and socialize and hang out, as well as watching the fights. And we had VIP tables and all this cool stuff, and it ended up being a really great thing. We had the great fights. We had DJs performing. We had, like I said, Ice-T and other artists like that performing during the show. We had little break dancers performing during the breaks and go-go dancers, and it was a hot thing. I think all of our ring girls were all like fetishes, the naughty school girl, the nurse. At those days, it was kind of cool in those days. But that was the whole thing we did. Our cards, our Ringtown cards were like playing cards, like the hearts. First round was like the first hearts, and it was really a really cool thing. And it caught on real fast, and it started getting a real great buzz. And just so you know, what you mentioned about the UFC, after about 4 shows, the UFC actually bought the WFA. They purchased it. So that's why, and they did incorporate, first of all, we had Rampage. We had a lot of the big names under contract. So they purchased that, and they got those as well. And then all that feel, and you saw the UFC change its style to a little more of that production value from that time on. So they actually own the brand, the WFA. If you see any of the UFC games nowadays, that's like a special feature in there. You'll see fights in the WFA cage in the ring and the logo on the ground. And I think it's so cool to see, like, oh man, I started that, so.
That is cool.
Yeah.
So they discontinued. I mean, because that sounds like such an amazing concept. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Beecher's Madhouse, but it's a cross between a show and a club, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. So when you're talking about, where Fight Club beats the nightclub, why is that not a thing right this second?
Well, the UFC already had its thing going on. What they did was they just realized they needed to step up their entertainment side of it. So they did start doing things like having, if you notice, remember, bands would perform before artists would walk out. They'd allow certain, names and celebrities to walk out with their fighters. They'd have a better, a DJ playing throughout the whole show. They didn't feature it in the same way that we did, but they did step up the entertainment value quite a lot these days. And I would say that being at the UFC show is very different than watching it on TV. On TV, you see a great card, great. The visual is great as far as the card and what's going on, but in the actual venue, it's a lot of energy. It's a whole different feel. They have DJs playing loud, and it's a whole fun thing. So I think they kind of took what they wanted from it, got the the cards, got the talent that we had signed, and it also got rid of us. So I think it was like a perfect business move for them, and more power to it.
I want to bring the money was a lot different for fighters back then than it is today. Is that a fair statement?
Fact.
Because back then, when a fighter typically, what were a typical fighter making for a fight? I mean, in your very, very early days, you were just doing it for the sport. There was no money involved.
Yes.
Nothing.
To give you an example of that, when I first fought on TV against Carlton Gracie Jr., that was for Extreme Fighting Battlecade. It was a very big show. It was this second biggest show behind the UFC. It was a title fight. I fought for 0 if I lose and 4,000 if I win. and there was no there were no, that means the title, if I win the title.
The title.
Yeah, and there were no like judges, so only referees would just make sure everybody's safe. So you had to either knock them out, you know, make them give up, or it was a draw, no matter how much you beat somebody. So we'd have 30-minute fights, and at the end of the day, you can dominate for the whole entire fight, like I feel like I did for that fight. But the end result's a draw, which means 2,000 to each of us, and nobody has a title. It was a different time. So you never were fighting. Back to what you're saying, we weren't fighting in those days for the money. We were fighting because we really wanted to see what we were about and test ourselves. You know, it's just a whole nother story. Yeah.
And what about weight classes back then? What that was a little bit different, wasn't it? Was it possible that a guy your size could go up against a 300-pound guy?
Definitely. In those days, that was when you were seeing the first few UFCs, when that was the situation, and Royce was fighting against, you know, the big Samoan guys, and, you know, huge guys he was fighting. And also we would have no divisions as well. And the cool thing about my era was I was able to fight through all of it. I was able to fight from the very beginning of the no holds barred all the way through to what we know as mixed martial arts. So in the very beginning, I was fighting with no gloves, bare knuckles. Not like, you know, you hear people say they were bare knuckle fighters, but you can see it on YouTube right now. The fight with Carlton Gracie Jr. was with no gloves. We just had tape on our wrists, and 30-minute straight fights. You know, like from beginning to end.
Wait. Say that again. Yeah. When you say a 30-minute straight fight, what does that mean exactly? 10 3-minute rounds?
Well, in the beginning, it was 30 minutes straight.
30 minutes, 3 minutes.
Well, the bell starts, and then it stops, and the bell rings in 30 minutes. You know, it's like a fight. Yeah, and then it would become 2 15-minute rounds, and then eventually 3 5s. But the funny thing about it is, we would literally be in our hotel room, and we'd get a call 2 in the morning. Hey guys, just so you know, tomorrow we're gonna be trying these new glove things out. I'm like, what? You know, like, or tomorrow we're going to be going from 15-minute rounds to 3 5-minute rounds. And I'm like, what do you mean tomorrow? Like, and we trained a certain way. You know, you train to a certain pace to manage yourself through that way, and you have a strategy for that. So they just changed it on you in a dime. So I was fighting during those days when spontaneously things would change. You know, 3 o'clock in the morning, grab your stuff, move your bags. The police are coming. We got to move to another hotel, you know, in Canada, to another Indian reservation, so they wouldn't arrest us. You know, and then we fight, and then half the guys would get arrested, half would sneak back home. So we went through all of that, you know, and all those changes of the gloves and the rounds and the weight divisions into the UFC being purchased eventually by the Fertittas, which is another great story, and to what you see today. So I kind of was able to be involved in all of it from one side to the other side, which is kind of a really neat thing to say. So
what were you going to say, Mel?
No, I was just going to ask a question. So you were saying that before it was like no money or $4,000 if you basically won the title. And of course, now seeing how much UFC fighters get paid, do you think that the reason why the actual salaries that are made has extrapolated out so much is because of the enhanced popularity that the UFC has experienced? Or do you think that it's some other reason? You know, like, is it a moving profit margin, so there's a bigger piece of the pie coming to the fighters now because it in itself is bigger?
I think it's a little of both. I think it's part of it is there's been a big argument about this for a long time about how much fighters get paid, and they compare it to boxing and other sports. So I think the world just forced the price to go up. They can only get away for so long without doing that. You know, the numbers still aren't massive, but a few guys make a lot of money. A few guys, the Conor McGregors and they make a lot of money, but not everybody. And there's reasons for that I understand. As a promoter, I understand as well, that we could talk about if you'd like. But I think that was the main thing, is just the time and progression, you know, and hopefully it'll continue to go up. But it was obvious how much the show was making, and the fighters weren't. And eventually enough pressure, just, you know, they had to start stepping up a little bit. And then other things came in, like competition. You know, the Bellator came in with Spike, and they were a real contender, you know, so financial contender. So all of a sudden now you got the artists saying, I don't know, do I want to fight for Bellator or do I want to fight for the UFC? And that obviously, you know, free market, which I'm a big fan of, that changes a lot. You know, when someone else is saying, well, I'll give you this much. When there's just one player in the game, you kind of got to take what you got. But when you get 2 or more that are legitimately paying, you can choose.
Right.
So let's talk about the Fertittas for just a moment, because I understand there's a rumor on the street that you had something to do with introducing the Fertittas to MMA. Can you talk about that for just a moment, and the UFC, and because that's also, you know, not only the fact that you were in it from the very beginning, but just instrumental in what it is today. So can you talk about that Fertitta and Dana White connection? I think that's just a great story.
Yeah, so the story is out there. The Fertittas have told it, and then Dana's told it, which is really cool. They've kept that alive. I was in a Hard Rock one day hanging out with some friends in Vegas, and Dana came up to me, who I've heard his name before. He was a trainer for the Fertittas, and he trained a lot of the Fertittas and other people as well. And that's what he was, a boxing coach at the time and best friends of the two Fertittas. So Dana White came up to me in the Hard Rock casino, and I didn't know Dana at the time. I just heard his name around town. He was a trainer of the Fertittas and others in the boxing world. And he came up to me and said, hey, listen, my clients, my friends, the Fertitta brothers, who I didn't know as well, they are interested in learning more about jiu-jitsu. Now, at the time, Lorenzo Fertitta was on the athletic commission for boxing, as well as running the casino. And Frank Fertitta was just handling just the casino business. So I said, sure, I'll love to meet him. So I went over and met him, and we said, hey, let's do some privates and, kind of go from there. So this is a couple of years before the UFC was purchased, by the way. So this is the very beginning. So I ended up training with those guys 2-3 times a week for a few years, and training them in jiu-jitsu and helping them really understand the sport. At the time, Lorenzo Fertitta was actually trying to keep the UFC from coming to Las Vegas because he was in the boxing world and he didn't want to compete with that whole boxing game. And he's a huge boxing fan. Over the time with me, he started becoming very passionate about the martial arts and learning the science behind it. And what I did to make it more interesting, I started getting bored. Like, what am I going to show him this week? So what I said is, let me start calling my friends. So I'd bring in Chuck Liddell to train, to teach one day with me. I'd bring in Tito. I'd bring in BJ. I'd bring in all these guys who are my students and my friends, and I would have them train. So they get to know these guys and go, these guys are really amazing for one and really great guys for two. And they started becoming more and more and more fans of the sport. Later on, years later of this going on, just so you know, they meant like the tap out crew for me. Everybody in the sport I introduced to them one at a time. So they got to know. We go to the shows together and they get to meet everybody, and they just became, in love with the sport. So eventually, an opportunity came for the WFA, and I was going to start that before they bought the UFC. And another opportunity came for the UFC to go on sale. And they had met everybody at that point, and Dana brokered a deal, and, the rest is history. So I guess what people say today is like, there was a time when they wouldn't have purchased the UFC if they hadn't fell in love with the sport and got to meet all these guys and been juiced in like that. So I was involved in that part of it with them. And I think that's a significant part of it. And they say it is as well. But for me, it was just a good time with some good friends, and it ended up being what it is today.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And
That's super cool.
so, boxing, not boxing, but boxing, MMA, all martial arts, at some point you have to say, let me put this up because I've got to change direction because it's tough on your body. And I know you still train people, but you're not getting in the ring. So at that particular, at some point you decided to, I know you've been a very successful, besides in the world of MMA, a successful promoter in the nightclub industry. And then you got into acting. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. And I know Zoe, when she saw you were on General Hospital, oh my goodness. That's when you got Zoe. She was like, General Hospital. I'm like, Luke and Laura?
That's funny.
Different time frame. So tell us how you got into acting. And then I know Zoe wanted to take it from here. So let's jump into acting before we get into what you're doing now, because John's also an accomplished musician. So we'll get into the music part last, but let's talk about your acting. How did that happen? And give us the story there.
Well, there's you touched on a huge window, which basically is 20-year or 18-year span, which is the nightclub side of it. So when I sold the WFA, when we sold that, and then I was like, okay, now what? Because I had been out of the fighting game for many years. I still was capable of fighting again, and I still had the love for the actual fighting, but I had become a different person. I become a businessman. I always said I wanted to be the guy paying the artists because we weren't making any money. I wanted to pay the artists as opposed to the fighters as opposed to being the fighter. So at that point, I could have went back to fighting, but it was like I was just in another trajectory. I was on a business trajectory at that point. So that same John Huntington, my partner from the WFA, said, "Hey, John, I'm producing, I'm doing my nightlife parties, and I have a party at the Ghost Bar." And he said, you want to come over there? You can have a table and some bottles, just bring me a guest list. And I'm like, sure. I didn't know what that was really. Yeah. So I would call everybody and all my people and say, hey, you want to come to this thing I'm doing on Tuesday night at the Ghost Bar? And I put together a massive list of hundreds and hundreds of people that would want to come. So it's kind of like if, you know, Oscar De La Hoya was calling people saying, do you want to come to my party? People were like, heck yeah, I want to come to your party, you know? So I didn't realize that the pull I had at the time, because of my fighting career, when I was inviting people, so I had a massive list. And, you know, it would be lines around the block, John Huntington as well. And the nights were just incredibly successful. The best nights in Vegas, the most popular nights in Vegas, and the best clubs. Doing that, I continued to do that, and I started getting more and more nights. But what happened is John Huntington ended up having a discrepancy in his business with the family that owned the hotel at the time, the Maloofs, and so he ended up leaving that job. So they thought they would continue without us, and immediately it just crashed to nothing. So they called me a few weeks later, or maybe a month later, and said, hey, would you consider taking over, you know, because you had a great list, and taking the night so it would be your night. And I was like, sure, you know, like, so I was like, cool. So then once again, I did my list, and it was packed, and it was hugely successful again. And that was my thing. So I built a lot of people there, and then I started opening other nights during the week. I think it was like Sundays at Light, and like 3 or 4 nights, the biggest nights in Vegas. Every one of them was mine, and for a long time I was just dominating in that as a promoter. And that's a whole other conversation we can get into if you guys want to. But it snowballs into a 20-year career as being like the highest paid marketing director and club guy in Vegas. So that's where it happened. So what I started doing during the end of that, I was trying to generate more business in our nightclub. So I came up with the idea in the very beginning. No one was doing this. It was me and a guy named Stevie D. They came up with the idea of doing public appearances. No one was doing appearances anywhere. So I was simply thinking, man, I'm doing these parties. How can I keep them cool? And I knew these kids from the real world. And I said, well, maybe if I have these kids come over and give them a bottle and put them on a flyer, people would like it. So I did that. And all of a sudden, you know, that was born. The whole so-and-so hosts a night thing was born. And then that started growing and growing to, you know, Paris Hilton and Britney Spears, and it became a huge business. But in doing so, I was dealing with agents and managers and all over the world all the time. And I started building great relationships with them. And the acting part of it, before the producing part of it, one of the agents that I got to know real well, Melissa Hershenson, who is my agent today, came to me from Innovative Artists. She was just one of the clients. She was one of the people who I always worked with for one of her clients, Annalyn McCord. And she said, hey, you ever thought about acting? You know, I think you got a great charisma, and, you know, that guy in the club, that popular guy, is the same guy the guy who had that it thing, the one that when he walks into the club, that's kind of similar to what it is in acting. And I said, well, I thought about it, but I'm in Vegas, you know? So she says, well, I'll send you some auditions on tape. You can self-tape them. And if you like it, we'll try it. I said, yeah, sure. She sent me a couple auditions. The first one, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, how to record it properly. You know, it was for like True Blood or something. But the second one for feature, after the rules, I booked it. So she's like, wow, you have a lot of talent, you know? So little by little, she started sending me more and more of those things from Las Vegas. And I was learning from self-taping and getting a lot of great feedback. And eventually I fell in love with that so much that I said, you know, I took my Vegas hat off during a very financially good time, but I decided to come to California and do the whole acting thing. You know how that goes. So I came here, and I've been here ever since. You know, there's a whole producer side of it, but we can get into that in a few.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm going to take over for a little bit, and I am going to correct something that I have never seen, General. It was storming.
Lying.
Oh man, you feel all good for no reason.
When he said that he saw that you'd been on that, he was very excited.
He's the one that liked it. He's the one that watches it all the time.
Yeah, he does.
That's his show.
My kids are all black belts. Hang on. Get out.
Mine's in a room playing Fortnite, so it's all good.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they do usually. My kids are all black belts in Taekwondo, and it took us 3 years to get through that shit. So I have a tiny understanding of the, you know, the level of commitment that it takes. But yeah, it's such a good sport because it's so much more than just a sport, isn't it?
Yes,
it's the discipline, the commitment.
Way of life. It's a way of life, yeah.
Yeah, it did so much for my kids, and like I said, only know a tiny fraction of of what that took. But
Right
yes, so I'm a big movie and TV buff, so I get to ask you about that side of things. And I understand that not only you're not just an actor, you're a producer, a writer, you have your own production company. So maybe start a bit more with the acting. What was your first kind of major role?
I think, I mean, there's been a lot at this point. I'm not sure what the first,
Oh, I know. I've seen.
was. Yeah. But you know, I guess I would say when I start saying major, I start thinking about playing, you know, leads, you know, as opposed to, because I've been in a lot of features as strong supporting roles and things like that nature. But I had a really fun when I did Justice, which is a Western, because I always wanted to play a Western and I never thought I'd get to. So that was really, really fun for me, playing the antagonist in that, and engrossing myself in that. That was probably the first one that was like, I mean, every page I was on from beginning to end of the script, as opposed to, you know, 10 pages or whatever. And, you know, I was there for the whole run and shooting every day. And we working with great talent like Stephen Lang, and all my scenes were with him, another great, very, very talented actor. And being able to, you know, hold my own notes, that was a great thing for me and a good confidence builder.
And obviously you've done some great TV too. You were in Sons of Anarchy, right?
Anarchy, some Hawaii Five-0 and
Hawaii Five-0, yeah.
I had some fun TV things. But I've always been into movies and wanting to pursue that career. But you know, when you get an opportunity for some pretty cool shows like Sons, you kind of say, yeah, you know.
Yeah. How could you say no, right?
Yeah, it's just cool people to work with. And
did you get to touch Charlie Hunnam at all?
Oh yeah, I know him very well. He's a great guy. I touched him on his hand. No, we're friends, and he's a good guy. I knew him before. This is another thing. I knew him because the club's in Vegas. I booked him at my nights to host a party. And then, you know, years later, I'm like, hey, Charlie, and then we're working together, you know. So there's a lot of people that I've booked in a nightclub industry that I ended up working with in films afterwards. And a lot of the agents that I've worked with booking their talent that I ended up, when I'm producing films, you know, calling them and saying, hey, this is John, you know, I want to book your talent, your cast for a movie now instead of a nightclub. So that crossed over real well. Yeah.
So when did you take the leap from acting to writing and producing? Was it, were you doing, how did that?
It wasn't a leap. It wasn't a leap. It was the same time. Right. I realized right away, I've always been a business-minded person, as Stormy could tell you. So I'm always thinking outside of the box. And I realized coming to California, even later in my life, at age-wise, compared to a lot of the young bucks that come out here, I realized I had to have something unique. And I had all these relationships. So very often, I would come out here and do an audition and book a role in a you know, smaller role, whatever, in a feature. And then I would sit and have a meeting with them. And by the time the meeting was over, a lot of times it's like, what do you want to produce? Do a producer on it? Because I ended up knowing, I know a lot of the talent and agents better than the producers here did. From all my great years in Las Vegas, literally having drinks and partying and having fun together and getting to know each other. I had a very special relationship. So I was able to bring relationships, location, things to the table as a producer. So in the very beginning, I would just pretty much add to a show like a cast member that matters that he couldn't have easily conversation with, or a you know, or locations or things like that. And that I was producing in that way. Over time, I whatever I do, I just go 100% into it and start reading and studying and take classes. And I became an accomplished producer in the way that I could produce a film on the ground from beginning to end, every aspect of it, and sales as well. Now I'm a sales, now I'm a acquisitions and sales guy right now as well. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, I was going to say something. So Zoe, here's a little known fact that a lot of people don't know about. So when John was actually producing, oftentimes he needed like the sex symbol male lead, and then my phone would ring, and he's like, Stormy, listen, I got something for you.
I'll call Stormy and ask for his son. Yeah.
Whoa, his son.
It
was me. Forget him. Forget him. It was me. And unfortunately, I had to turn him down so many times. But then some of the other big name Hollywood actors that you hear of today only got those roles because I turned it down.
It was like The Rock versus Stormy.
Yeah, Stormy. It was.
And you know, for political reasons, they had to go with The Rock. But that was my first choice. So one thing I learned really early on, and I think it really helped me in my career, is I learned to not go to those big meetings asking what they can do for me, but what I can do for them. You know, and people never expect that. You know, everybody's, you know, coming to them, and everybody wants you to help make their career or make them famous or make them rich or make them whatever you want in life. And no one really asks them, and they all have their own goals and their own dreams as well. So I learned right away. So I'd sit down in meetings with people and I just start the conversation off by saying, so, so what do you want? This is what you want to do? What do you know? And they look at me shocked, and then you'd find that you start talking to people and they say, well, I really want to produce, or I really been wanting to do this, that, and the other. And you start a conversation in a very different way. And a lot of the times I have relationships that can help them. And I say, let me put you together with my so-and-so, and I'll connect you guys up and see if we can help. And they go, oh, thanks, John. And then they go, so what about you? What are you working on? And I say, oh, I'm just trying to do this. And then it ends up becoming, well, let me call you. So I learned right away, stop, don't go to people and say, what can you do for me to make me, help me, and help them. And usually people really are receptive to that, and they want to give back if they feel that from you. So that's something anybody could learn in any business, I think, is sit in front of somebody and find out what they want, find out what they need. And usually it comes back around if you're dealing with a good person.
And I think what you said earlier too about you being a bit more mature when you came into it is looking at it as a business rather than,
100%. That's another thing, so I've done like a nightclub guy would, where he'd go in as a bus boy, and then he'd become, a bar manager, and then he'd become a manager, and then become eventually an owner, and he knows everything about the business. Same thing with this. I write, I produce. When I say produce, I mean I understand the financing, raising money. I know what they're looking for, the casting side of it, every part of it, so that when I'm trying to deal with someone, and I know what roles I need to play, because I know they need a certain specific role to get their movie financed. So, or I know when I'm writing the script and I want to play a great role in the script, and I know what I would say my value, we'd call it, is at this moment. Value, not your personal value. That's way up there. But that, your sales value, your business value, like your movies, if Arnold Schwarzenegger is generating $8 million in international sales, then the film can't be more than $8 million budget, and you'll be safe before you even make the film. So I understand these things. So that when I'm writing a film for myself, I'm saying I want this $10 million movie, and I want to be the lead in this movie. It's not going to happen unless I make sure I'm someone right next to me on both sides that have the value that I need to make a $10 million film. And the long as I bring those guys to the table, then I can be my guy. They don't care because I can do the job, but they need to make sure they can do the business part of it, which is they need the Arnold next to me so they can sell the film. So I when you understand the business of it, you can get things accomplished, because when you come from just the passion or just that side of it, a lot of times, unfortunately, that gets lost because it's just not feasible in the business. But when you know something inside and out, you know how to speak to the right people in the right way and what needs to happen to get things done. So I'm very successful at getting films made, packaging projects, and I can almost make a film at will nowadays just based on knowing how to package it properly. And that's what I do with my new company that I'm part of, not just my personal company, but B3 Media. I'm of acquisitions and I package projects and develop them and bring them to my team when they're ready to be signed. And usually it's like, okay, they sign them because I know what they need.
Great.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about your current passion, your music in a second. I just have one more quick question. I know you've been involved in the Western that you were excited about, and action movies and horror movies. Is there any genre of movie that you're really excited to conquer?
Well, I didn't come, there's one thing about me. I didn't come into the world of acting like you see the actors nowadays do from the UFC, where they automatically get a phone call. You want to be a co-star in this show coming up? Because I'm just picking a name, he's a wonderful fighter, like Conor McGregor, for instance. He would get a phone call saying, you want to be in this movie coming up, and they'd feature him. I didn't come into it that way. I came out here after my career was well done. So whenever I walk into a room for auditioning, no one knows who I am as a fighter. They know that on my resume, he can do martial arts. That's about it, So I've earned everything that I did as an actor, and I take it very seriously. So at this stage, I've probably only made 2 films where I'm actually fighting, and it's not what got me in. I got in as an actor, which I'm kind of grateful for because I'm not pigeonholed in that world. And I just done anything from romantic comedies to dramas to thrillers to whatever. So I like all kinds of stuff. I like real heavy things. I like fighting and martial arts, but I don't by any means want to be a martial art actor. That's not my goal. I want to grow old as a talented actor in whatever role I'm playing, and that's what I'm into.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Now I know with you talking about nightclubs. We're getting into Mel because she's like, what, nightclub promotion? Music artist? Because this is her passion, money and music. This is, her book, Finance is the Other F Word. It is, she does a masterful job of tying in money, finances, and how artists that we all know, how some of them have done a great job with their finances, some haven't done such a great job, and she does a great job of explaining it. So when you're tying in music promotion, I can't imagine where Mel's going to go. I'm just going to ask her, don't get naked on the show, okay, Mel? Because I know you're pretty excited right now. So, but
Look,
let's at least keep it just R-rated.
I'm not going to complain if she does.
You wouldn't.
Hey, that's Jason Caesar right there. Woo, woo, thank you. And this whole time I'm like, as I'm listening to him, I'm like, oh, I hope I haven't made John uncomfortable.
No, hard to do.
Okay. Okay. So before I talk about your music and all of and as you're talking about, promoting and writing and getting Dana White involved in UFC to, eventually bring it to the global sensation that it is now, all I'm thinking in my head is, what did those numbers look like? Like, how did they get it there? Like, what did they do? And when you're talking about all of your nightclub promotions and you're just reusing the example of, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you got to keep it within the budget. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, budgets and then sub budgets. And then, how could you work that where you could trim the fat? I know. And all of a sudden, like, I'm getting all hot and bothered again. But before we get to your music, which I really, really want to talk about, you had mentioned early in the podcast about how back in the day it was like one style fighting against another style of fighting, like judo versus boxing, and it made me think of McGregor and Mayweather. And when that happened, I was thinking, why would McGregor? Obviously, they both got huge paydays, but why would McGregor do that? Not that he doesn't have the ability to be a fighter, but why would you take where you're really good at something and then go try to do something different? So why did that happen? That still confuses me to this day.
I'm telling you, it's quite the opposite of what you're thinking. He had zero to lose. He only could make money. If he lost that fight, it meant nothing because he fought Mayweather in a sport that is not even his sport. He had zero to lose. So all he had was a chance to make money. If he won, he beat Mayweather. If he loses, I lost to Mayweather like Pacquiao did, but who's actually a boxer. So it actually was a very smart thing for McGregor to do because he had zero to lose in a scenario situation and everything to gain. Whereas Mayweather was fighting against a UFC fighter in his world. If he would have lost to Conor, he would have been in a very bad situation because some UFC fighter guy who's not even a full-on boxer beat the best boxer in the world. That would have been an upset. So actually, it was incredibly smart for McGregor because he could. It's like someone small saying, "I'll fight Tyson," in his prime. What the heck, if you lose, who cares? Like it's Tyson, and you're 20 pounds, 30 pounds lighter than him. But if you won, so he made a lot of money, like you said. His stock actually probably went up because he didn't just get beat it right away. He actually hung in there for a sec. So he probably gave himself a lot of credibility, which we know he did. And he had nothing to lose. So it wasn't even a very, I wouldn't even call it a brave thing. It's less scary to me than MMA. And all he could do is win no matter what happened.
Right.
So do you think that that's going to be a trend that would potentially continue? I mean, I think that Mayweather is probably really damn close near to retiring now. But do you think that would be something? Because, I mean, you are right. There's only an upshot for McGregor.
Yeah.
So would we expect that whenever we get through this whole COVID thing, that we would see maybe more crossovers like that?
I think we're already hearing about some of them. I mean, Summer, you're going to have to help me. What's his name? Russia that beat McGregor. It's Khabib. He recently, I don't remember who it was. If it was Mayweather or someone else, he issued a challenge. So I think all the UFC guys that are on the top level are like, oh my God, who can I fight? Who can I fight? He made, in the UFC, they're making 400,000, 300,000, 500,000, unless they're McGregor. And in the UFC, and in the boxing match, they're making 100 million. They're like, please, so they're already working on that now, trying to get fights. And the bottom line is, it's hard to find someone as valuable as McGregor is for the fighters to put themselves on the line. Because, like I said, the risk's all on Mayweather, so it's got to be worth it to Mayweather or the like, whoever they're going to fight, no matter what level of UFC star they are. If there's not a credible amount of money in the promotion of it, which obviously, Mayweather's a great promoter, and McGregor, that combination is like no brainer, money to be made. So I think back to make it short, I'm sorry, but I think the UFC fighters want to do that, yes, but the boxers have to see the value in putting themselves on the line, because they really are, not the fighters, not the UFC fighters.
Yeah, the whole time I was watching it, I just kept hoping that McGregor would take him to the ground. I was just like, just come on, I know you're boxing, but just fucking throw him down and start ground pounding him. And it never happened, alas, and I was pretty bummed out. But anyway, so add into the long list of everything you've accomplished, which is seriously mind-blowing. And, you know, we've had a lot of people on the show and a lot of interviews, and I think that our favorite interviews are always the people who have made their own way themselves. And the fact that you were able to take something from its infancy, turn it into the genesis, and then, you know, help get it to where it is now, and the fact that you did it your way on your own terms with Zoe and Stormy and I mean, I know you know Stormy's background, but you don't know Zoe and I, and that's very appealing to both of us. So, I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated in that. But now you've added the music genre, and you just released, is it a CD album? I don't know what they call it now, but, you know, you've released a CD. And I really want to hear about that. And then I want to hear about, you know, are you independently publishing that? Did you do that through a label? How are you distributing it? What was the need to do that? Because that's a very super creative outlet, which I'm sure that you got a lot of satisfaction from doing the promotions at the nightclub, because that takes obviously a lot of, you know, out of the box thinking. So what has now drawn you to the music sector? And tell me about your music and the passion with that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the money side and how that's all coming together.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it wasn't like a thing I came out of the box out of nowhere doing. When I first left Hawaii earlier to dance, which Stormy mentioned for a moment earlier in the podcast, or the Zoom or whatever we call these, I came to here and I danced and did all that. And I came to California and I started doing music. I started getting pretty good at writing and stuff. I eventually got a record deal in a very short amount of time, and with not by myself, with a group called Pop School Love, and Sugar Pop, and me and Sugar Pop, and then I released records. I got produced by major producers like Tommy Vicari and Grammy award-winning producers. So I had a whole career in that as a musician. That was my thing at the time, and I was also fighting at the exact same time. So then I fought Carlson, and my career just blew up really quickly. And right then I kind of felt like, man, I got to go all in on something, or else I'm going to kind of be okay at both. And I decided to go all in, and because I was already moving fast with the fighting thing, and I let the music career go. I always kind of dabbled and wrote throughout the years. It was always something I wanted to do, and I always regretted stopping, not because my career was a problem. I mean, I made great decisions that got me to where I am today, but it's a passion that is important to me. So I was able to come down, and, you know, I wrote it during COVID, and I was just bored. And I said, you know, I'm gonna start writing music again. I had no, what else am I gonna do, right? And I literally wrote this album in about 2.5 months, every song back to back, like not like a lot of them, and found the best 8. I wrote one after another, and that's the 8. They all came out very, very good. And it was really interesting, being older, having more wisdom. I had more to say, I found out. And I think my music is better now than it ever was before, just because I'm talking about something, you know, and I have a lot more knowledge. And the music came out really, really cool. It's kind of like rock, and I call it rock and soul, because it had a rock edge to it, but it definitely has a groove to it, because my influences go anywhere from, I mean, Prince to, I don't know, the Eagles, or, you know, Journey, or, I mean, there's a wide eclectic version, you know, Kings of Leon. So this time when I finished the album, I didn't really know the new world of music as far as marketing. In those days, it was like, get a record, get it to A&R guys, get a record deal, and blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, you can do it so differently, so I decided to put it out myself. So from writing it to putting it out took me about 2.5 months. It's everywhere. It's on all digital forums right now. I probably should have did more marketing before I put it out, because I was just doing it and learning as I'm going along. But I'm already halfway through another record, which is really great right now. And I'm using this first album right now that's out there now, and it's starting to generate buzz, and as going to be good promotion for the next one. And the next one, I'm definitely going to give it a lot more leeway, a lot more, you know, lead time, you know. But yeah, so I put it out myself. It's, you know, it's a really great album called "A Tear from St. Axel." It's all about 2020, everything that we've been going through, and all the struggles we've all been going through, from no specific perspective, just everybody's perspective, you know. And it's just the things that we probably all can identify with. And I think it's a really cool album if really listen to the lyrics. I think anybody can relate. And I wanted to talk about something real, you know.
So what made you, because obviously with your clout and the people that you know in the industry and the fact that you've established a name for yourself on so many levels in the entertainment sector, what made you not actually go after a traditional record contract and decide to do the self-publishing thing?
Because when I first started writing the songs, I was writing them just to write them, not with a means to an end of becoming, you know, selling it or whatever. I would literally wanted to write some good music, you know. And I think in business, you'll hear, and you are the same, I'm sure. Strongest entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs say they focus on just making a good product and just giving everything they can to making a great product. They don't do it to make money. They want to make money, but that's not the point. The point is doing a great product. And if it's great and the right stars align, you can make money. That's the icing on the cake. So same thing with this. I wrote the album to write a great album that I would love. When it finished, I'm like, now I'm finished with it. What am I going to do with it? I literally didn't know what I was going to do with it right away. I didn't want to waste it. I wanted people to hear it. I said, oh, I can just let people hear it on Facebook. I said, well, let me just put it out, you know? And I signed up on SoundCloud, and like quickly, I had like 21,000 followers on it, like right away, which is a pretty good number on SoundCloud for a not known artist. And people started really liking it a lot that way. So then I decided to put it out through their product, and that's how I got it out there. But I didn't come to it thinking I was going to have this strategy. I put it out. That's why I'm saying now, seeing the love that it's getting, seeing the energy that it's getting, and people really liking it, and writers and bloggers liking it. Then I realized I could have done it differently, but I'm so prolific when I write, and I'm already working on something else. I take this as a setup for now what I need to do next time. And now when people hear this next album, they'll be able to go back and go, oh, he has this album as well, you know? So yeah, I just kind of did it, and it just happened, you know?
Are you familiar with Adelita's Way?
I am. Yeah. They're from Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when I was there a long time, I don't know where they are these days, but I know back in the day, they were the #1 band in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just had, and I'm sure that the fans will be like, say Jesus, but we talked to him, and he wanted me to pronounce it DeJesus. So Rick DeJesus was on our podcast, and he was talking about how he made the transition from, having a record deal and then getting shelved and then getting signed again and then having something happen with a contractual obligation, and it fell out. And then he went the independent route, and he's much happier. Obviously, his profit margins have went up. He has more control over his creativity, which is, the saddest part is that I always see, historically, when you think of any band that comes out with their freshman album and it's huge and it blows up, and then what happens is that immediately they want them to turn around, within 11 months to put out another follow-up on the sophomore album that they don't have as much time, and then they want to start exercising control over or how the artist speaks and how they sing and what they write about. And it's just, in my opinion, it just completely kills your creativity. And by doing it the independent channel, you can control that. So now, once all the COVID stuff goes away, are you looking at doing a tour of any kind or some club shows, or are you going to self-fund that tour? I mean, how financially would you swing that?
I like to be more of a solo artist in the way that I would be able to. I definitely like to perform, and I'm a strong performer, and I like doing that. It won't be like I'll hit the little dive bars around like you would when you're 20 and try to go that way. I go more with trying to break a single and getting buzz with it, and then perform based on that. You know what I mean? So if I was just only doing that, then I would just pack up the little van and that whole thing. But that's not what I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to think of it more like a recording. Like think of it like you think of I'm not using him as a musical reference, but like a John Mayer kind of guy, like someone who would just singer-songwriter, puts out some good music, gets some movement, and then based on the movement from it, tour accordingly. And once it becomes something that's profitable in that way, I would go 100 direction, and I would go all the way into that for a while. I know another guy who did that for a long time was Jared Leto with 30 Seconds to Mars. He started just writing, and his band was cool, but then it started actually getting legs, and you saw he left that for a while, and he did that for a long time. Then he came back to his acting roots. But so I think right now for me it's more of the recording artist, singer-songwriter thing, putting out albums, promoting it, trying to get the single to catch, and going from there and seeing where it leads me.
Yeah, like John Mayer and Taylor Swift are not my type of music. I'm more of a metal rock chick, but I admire both of them because they're singer-songwriters. And we had the kind of the decade of the singer-songwriters in the 70s with the Carole Kings and the Carly Simons, and then it just kind of fell off. And it's really refreshing to see somebody who is writing their own music because they're more attached to it. And I think that there is a depth that you do gain, you do garner from being more mature because you do have more things to speak about. And I mean, a lot of the songs out now, you know, are if you're in your 20s and they're singing about stuff, I mean, it's garbage. It has great beats, but it's garbage. Let's be honest. And lyrically speaking, it's garbage. Wop.
I knew you were going to say that, and I was going to say the same thing.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things is like when I was younger, I would think like I'm trying to write a song that will be a single and a hit song. These days, I don't care if you like it or not. I really don't care. And I don't care if you buy it or not because I don't need it. I would like it. I want it because I care about it. You know, I like it and I want to share it with you. And if you dig it, cool. And if you don't dig it, it's cool too. So that's one thing. So what that does, it frees you up to write whatever you want and be really, really, truly creative and not limit yourself because you think, oh, well, you know, the hook's not this enough or that. So that could go for me or against me, but either way, I'm okay, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is with the, you know, even before the self-publishing really took off and people, you know, we have so much access to more artists that are being able to be themselves and being able to put their music out there. You know, we had major upheaval in the music industry. I think it was like the beginning of 2000 where we had a whole bunch of mergers going on within the big record labels. And then, of course, when you had the birth of the internet come on, then all of a sudden it was like a free ball for everyone. And we had Carlota on here also a couple weeks back from Comp 92.3, the rock station here. And she talks just about how the radio broadcasting, everything has changed. So you're in a music industry, everything's changing. So what are so now, right now with the COVID thing happening, you have your first album out, CD, album, whatever, you know, they're called now, CD, and, you know, you're creating buzz with that. You're already in the process of writing the second one. Is your plan to release the second one as well, or is your plan to really market the hell out of this first one and have it get real good legs and then go with the second one?
Yeah. No, I really want to market this first one, and I really want to get it out there. And I think there's some really wonderful songs on it. It's very timely with this year, so it's important to this year. So, and I think that that's where I want to kind of focus on right now while I'm writing, and I'm getting through the next record. It's moving pretty quickly, but I'm not trying to rush it by any means. But yeah, I'm going to focus on this one, give it as much legs as I possibly can get it, and then properly set up for the next one and get it out there. You know, this is a lesson, just if there's any musicians out there that don't know. I learned like when I finished it, I got it done, figured it out how to release it, and released it. And then I said, how do I market this thing? I guess bloggers would be a great way to do it. So then I reached out to all the bloggers, but they all go, man, I really love what you're doing. It's incredible, but we want things before they come out. Like, you know, not after they've been out for a while. So I shot myself in the foot with some of those people because they all are fans, but they're like, but you already got it out. So there's not much we can do with it to help it. So I learned that, you know, as I'm learning along, I'm learning in the wrong order from some of these things because it's a whole new world for me, self-releasing. Definitely whoever's going to try something like this to take the time to really figure out the whole process. And I was just so excited about it. I wanted to get it out there fast. I moved really quickly, but I could have definitely done it better. But I do think that I am prolific enough. It's not like this is the album and this is all that's ever going to come out of my soul. So I'm not tripping on it. The next one is even sounding better than this one. And I love this one as well, but I will definitely market this one, get what I can out of it as far as, you know, getting people to know who I am so that when I do another one, they're waiting for it and people will write about it. And then when they look at it, they start liking the second album. They're like, oh, he has another album, and we'll go that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then this is my last question, and then we'll move on to the last part of our segment. So, being the fact that recording artist and, you know, nightclub promoter in a post-COVID world, what does live music do you think looks like, or even to nightclubs? You know, especially, I mean, if you've ever been to the nightclubs in Vegas, I mean, it's elbow to asshole in there, and you can barely even move. So social distancing in a nightclub is not going to work. So what do you think that those two specific genres look like in a post-COVID world?
I think it's like, I mean, like making movies. I think right now they're slow. I have a film right now in production, a big film in Toronto. So it's starting to finally go after all this time. I think it's going to be, those kind of things will be rough for a while, you know, which might actually be perfect for my situation, because it's not like an inside touring kind of scenario. It's people hungry for content because they're stuck in their homes. But I think that I think we get back by first quarter next year. I think we're going to get back on track again. I think a lot of it has to do with what's going on, you know, with the election, and what's going on with just trying to wrap their heads around COVID is you know, versus you know, the different kinds of way they think it's passing with, you know, and vaccines supposedly. So we'll see. But I think the rest of this year is shot. Probably the first few months of the next year is definitely slowly coming back. I think hopefully by mid next year we'll be back in action. You know, I mean, this is just a prediction with no scientific background behind it, but just from the way things are going, I feel that. You know, without getting too deep into it, I've seen crowds together way bigger than concerts lately. So if they can do that, I think we can get back to concerts in the room eventually, hopefully by next year. You know, I think that there's things I think we can get back to that. I think right now it's just going to be, I think the next 2-3 months, I think is going to be very telling. And then by the end of the year, and hopefully by the beginning of next year, we're going to start seeing things move quicker, you know, just wishful thinking, you know.
Yeah, my only concern with the indoor venues, though, is that I don't know about how other people when they do shows, but if I go to a show, I'm letting loose. I'm screaming my balls off. I'm singing, and you know that's not fun with a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I want to scream the lyrics to a song, I don't want to be like, you know, with the mask going in and out of my mouth, and that's kind of a turn off from a live music perspective. And I used to go to lots of shows in the before time.
Right.
No, I go see Michael Bublé.
4 or 5 months, you know, I think, that hopefully that calms. But I hear you 100%.
If you just change your venues, if you go see Michael Bublé like I do, no one's screaming. We're just having a good time.
Yeah. And outside's great. Outside venues are awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love, outside's great. Yeah.
That works for live music, but that doesn't work for nightclub venues.
Right.
So much,
That's different. Yeah, it's a whole different thing, right? Yeah. So
it's such a shame because the Vegas Strip has were before COVID more and more taking out the table and floor games, and you know, keeping some of the slot machines, but they were bringing in more retail and they were bringing in more nightclubs, and they were moving to a dining nightclub kind of atmosphere. And you know, the rents that the clubs are paying with the DJ residencies and stuff was outrageous. Well, now if you can't really incorporate that anymore, then that's your bottom line. A big chunk of your bottom line is just taken out by the knees. And whoever comes up with a way around that, and I have my money on you, John, is going to be making a ton of fucking money, because there's a way around it, and I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But there's too much money that the casinos and venues are leaving on the table, not being able to pack those nightclubs anymore. So I think after you release your second CD and get a Grammy, that should be the next thing that you're working on.
You do?
My first thought that is already going to be like those Nikki Beaches and those outside pool party venues we have, because they're outside. You can maximize you can say you can only have, you know, 50% of your occupancy. You can say, you know, those kind of things. And there's also rules about food and drinking with masks. So those restaurants, those venues sell food and drinks as well. So maybe there's a way at some point to start with that, with the outside venues first, because especially, you know, in Vegas, some of the best parties are the outside venues, you know, the wet, you know, Republics and things like that.
Oh, Wet Republic was so great.
Yeah, so those might be the first ones out there in the sun where you should be, you know, just they're pretty packed, but maybe they can, you know, cut capacity in half and start in a different way, you know.
Dude, I want you to do that, and then I want you to invite all three of us.
You got it.
Seriously, because you can't tell, but Zoe and I can drink, and we are partiers, so we will so be there. Don't let her little British accent, don't let her British accent fool you.
Stormy's lightweight. Stormy's a lightweight. He doesn't know.
Hey, man,
he's a cheap date. One wine, he's done.
Yeah, that's why we love him, though. He can be the driver.
We got Stormy pretty messed up one time at the Golden Tiki.
Two wines.
We were all wasted. We were all wasted.
we all got wasted, yeah.
We got to go back there, and they're open too. So you've spent a lot of time with us, and we're so unbelievably grateful. The amount of stuff you've done is just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm dead serious. Like, when you open this new club, I'm not even kidding, bro. I want a fucking invitation, first. Like, you know, before you invite anybody that people would know their name, you'd be like, you know what? I need to call Mel O, and then Stormy and Zoe. But Mel O first, real name, and then Stormy and Zoe. So we like to end all of our interviews with 4 questions, and we are going to let Stormy kick it off with the very first one.
Yeah, so here's something that a lot of people don't know. But John, I would like you to share the very first concert you ever attended.
Oh, God.
Ever.
And I want the year.
You're going to laugh.
I know it was
I don't know the year.
Weird Al Yankovic, but
I think you're gonna laugh. I didn't attend this because I like the group. I was opening. I was performing. It was Menudo in Hawaii.
Menudo.
I was like 13, 14, but we were dancing, and we were the opening act. So we performed first before them on stage and did our whole thing for like 30 minutes, and then they came out after us. So then I watched it. That was my first experience actually at the concert, from watching Menudo.
Menudo, nice.
Ricky Martin days back in the day.
Oh yeah, I remember the video they put out, and he was adorable then too. What year was that, babe?
Funny.
October 1st.
What year was that, John?
Gosh, you're asking hard questions. I didn't even remember. I was
probably in the 80s.
Dude, I'm making you do math. It's happening.
Yeah, it was like that. It was the 80s. I don't remember.
Yeah, somewhere in the 80s.
I know I was like
80s.
9th grade or, ninth grade, something like that. So I don't even know.
Okay.
I didn't want to tell you how long ago that was.
It's all right. We don't like that either. Okay, go ahead, Zoe.
Okay, my question is, how much cash money do you have in your wallet right now?
I got like $8, I think. Maybe. I think let's find out. I got 10. I got about $14.
14.
$14. I'm not a big cash carry kind of guy.
Yeah.
I only have this because I something happened the other day and I had to change the money with my son for the cash so I can put it on his card. So I have the change for the cash. I probably would have 0.
Yeah.
So it's not all dollars to make it rain or anything like that?
Yeah, 4 ones and a 10.
saving the 10 for some really important stuff.
Right. 3.
All right, Stormy.
Okay, so this show is called Finances, the Other F Word. We already know Mel O's favorite bad word. What's your favorite bad word?
My favorite bad word. It's gotta be fuck.
There you go.
That word you can use in so many different ways. I'm not a big cusser, big swearer. I kick my kid's butt for saying it. He probably is going to tease me after because he just heard me say that. But that word you can be used positively, negatively for any situation. It just fits perfectly. And it just accentuates the thought.
So when do you use it if you're not a real big cusser? Like, you got to be really pissed off or you got to be really passionate?
No, and I drop something heavy on my toe.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Yep.
I don't use it that much. I'm not a big
another feeling.
Direction.
Yeah.
If the wind changes direction, I'm like fucking Zoe and I, bloody fuck. She's always
it's usually for the exclamation mark kind of sentence with that use like a very strong one-word statement.
Right.
Not like in a constant sentence nonstop.
Mel,
nice.
See, it can be done.
I don't know. I like it. I like using it often for adjectives and verbs and nouns and person, place, things. So the last question we have for you is, and I want you to think about this, okay? What song do you like to get your groove onto?
My groove onto it.
Yeah, and don't say some random BS. Like, I want you to really, if you had the chance to get some right now, what would be your, you're walking into the ring, the bedroom song that you'd play? She's always getting into it. She doesn't even know what you're going to say, but she's already hearing something in her head for some reason.
I don't know. I'll date myself. I got to go back to, Barry White or something.
Hey! The Walrus of Love.
Dude, just like some groove. I don't even know the specific song. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know the name, but something like from the old days, Something.
Isn't that the I'm Never Gonna Give You Up?
Yes. Yes. Something that's really sets just the energy. Lights down low like the old school days, all corny.
Right. So tell our listeners how they can find you, how they can find your music, plug all your stuff, social media, and the whole works.
Yeah, I want to tell you the main thing is just go to the music site now is saintaxel.com, word saint and AXL, axel.com, because that has links to social media and everything. If you're into Journey Just the Tracks, you can check out SoundCloud. The music's available on iTunes, Amazon, every platform, iHeartRadio, so you can check it out that way. But if you want to just find the most about me in one place, two places. One place from the music side, and I would say saintaxel.com. And then from my other side of my world, my fighting world, that whole side of me, you would go to johnlewismma.com. By the way, a very good friend of mine made that site for me as a favor. Stormy Andrews.
Oh,
Really?
It's a really great site. It really has all the stuff with the UFC stuff history in it. It has those videos from Dana and Lorenzo, them talking about my history that we talked about, and all that stuff's right there on that site. And then if you want to see the music and creative side of it, you go over to saintaxel.com.
A genuine shout out, Stormy. You didn't even have to make it up. He genuinely shouted you out.
Look at that. There's a first for everything.
Yeah.
See our friends in Argentina? There we go.
That's how you do it.
ladies.
Ladies,
Yeah.
Ladies.
I'll be there.
And John Lewis fans. So, well, we thank you guys for listening to us on this episode. And John, I honestly cannot thank you enough for just spending so much time with us and telling us about everything that you've done and that you are doing. Please make sure that you follow us on Finances the Other F Word on social media. Make sure you follow soon-to-be child star Lily Luke Mittens on Instagram. Pick up Stormy's book, The World's Best Buyer Persona. I always screw that up. Why do I always do that? The World's Best Buyer Persona System.
Got it.
There it
And
is.
Finances the Other F Word, another F Word of love. We thank you guys. Please stay safe, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you, John.
Give me that link too, and I'll put it on my page under the press, what we did tonight, whenever you're ready, the link to this, and I'll promote it for you guys too.
Cool.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you all. I appreciate you.
John, it's been a
Okay.
pleasure to meet you.
Army, much love, brother.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you like us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.